I zadovoljstvo mi je, dame i gospodo, najaviti, ali i otvoriti prvi današnji panel. Već ste vidjeli, naziv je Smart City rješenja, značaj za grad Sarajevo. Zamolit ću da mi se na sceni pridruži vaš i naš moderator panela, Faris Hadrović. Zamolit ću ga da mi se pridruži na sceni. Je li tu Faris? On će vas voditi, dame i gospodo, kroz sve današnje i sutrašnje zapravo panele. Evo, Farise, ako nas čuješ, sada je vrijeme da se pojaviš, ni manje ni više. Faris Hadrović, dakle, neko ko će se sa vama družiti u naredna 2 dana, provesti vas kroz sve teme, panele ovogodišnjeg 6. Sarajevo Unlimiteda. A sada pozivam i paneliste koji su tu da mi se pridruže. Naime, gospodin Šu Kun, jedan je od panelista, stoga je ostao sa nama na stage-u, direktor kompanije Huawei, vrlo značajnog partnera Sarajevo Unlimiteda za Bosnu i Hercegovinu. Gospodin Tarik Hamzić je tu iz kompanije Ministry of Programming. Molim vas aplauz. A sa nama su i online, tako ćemo kombinovano i raditi ova 2 dana. Lara Fernandes, viši menadžer poslovnog razvoja i prodaje iz Cisco kompanije. Lara, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Good morning, everyone.
Hello, welcome. Big hello to you from Sarajevo and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, my pleasure.
I Marijeta Bajraktarović Lanzardi iz Ministarstva ekonomskog razvoja Crne Gore.
Dobar dan,
čujete, Marijeta? Dobar dan, veliki pozdrav iz Sarajeva. I dakle, panelisti su tu. I sad samo čekamo Farisa. Da li je? Tu, molim vas, zvijezda dolazi na kraju, jedan veliki aplauz za mog kolegu Farisa Hadrovića koji će vas voditi dakle kroz sve panele. Faris će biti i jeste već vrlo tražena osoba, tako da nemojte mu zamjeriti za ovo kratko kašnjenje. Naime, on treba da stigne na sve ove panele i da vas vrlo stručno vodi kroz sve nazive i ono što želite da predstavite. A za početak, Faris, Smart City rješenja, je li tako? The floor is yours, što bi se reklo, izvoli. I želim ti ugodan početak ovogodišnjeg Sarajevo Unlimiteda i prvog panela.
Hvala lijepa, Majo. Imamo jedan video prije nego što počne panel. Samo ću najaviti da ćemo ovaj panel voditi na engleskom jeziku jer su svi učesnici na panelu zamolili da bude na engleskom jeziku. Ako nemate ništa protiv, zbog komunikacije, kome treba prijevod, imate slušalce, možete uzeti ako vam treba simultani prijevod na engleski jezik. Pa bih zamolio režiju da nam pusti kratki video.
There's a world where every one of us is connected. Everyone. Everywhere. Where everyone is included. Where everyone has access to information, education, opportunity.
There's so much out there. I'm going.
There's a world where buildings are smarter. Where automation fuels productivity. And our planet's health is as important as our own. There's a world where everyone is invited to participate, to contribute, to be bold. When everyone and everything is connected,
that's really beautiful.
Anything is possible. Cisco, the bridge to possible.
Good morning. Dobro jutro I dobrodošli. Good morning and welcome to the panel Smart City, the importance for the city of Sarajevo, but also in general the concept of smart cities. With me today on the panel here live and online, we have Mr. Chunku, Kun from Huawei. We have Tarik Hamzić sitting next to me from the Ministry of Programming. And an interesting background because Tarik has also a smart city background from his previous life. And with us, joining us online are Lara Fernandes from Cisco, currently on the screen. And we also have Ms. Marijeta Bajraktarović Lanzardi from the Ministry of Economic Development of Montenegro. Now, are we all familiar with the concept of smart cities? Have we been in touch with the concept? Have we taken part in some of the initiatives? What is the concept of a smart city? We are witnesses that in the time also of the pandemic and increasing digitalization, we have seen that statistically more than 60% of the world populations live in cities. More than 70% work in cities, and approximately 80% of world economic value is created in cities. This all poses certain challenges, but also opportunities in the growth and modernization of cities and creating a better quality of life and services within those cities. So with increased digitalization, the return to past is unlikely. So cities are rethinking their growth strategies, their economic development strategies, urban service deliveries, and also cities are globally competing against one another. Now, when we say, you may pose the question how cities are competing. Well, cities are competing in terms of providing infrastructure, modernization, and incentives to bring talent, to bring companies, and to bring technology to position themselves as cities of the future so that they have an economic and technological advances for the ages that are coming. A smart city in principle, and my panelists will expand on that, is a city or a set of municipalities or administrative regions that uses communication technologies, so ICT, to increase its operational efficiency, share information with the public, and improve primarily the delivery and services of the government for overall citizen welfare. Now, the primary goal of an urban digital smart city is to create an urban environment that can yield a high quality of life for its residents. So some of the overall major characteristics of a smart city is a technology-based infrastructure, and we have with us people who are actually in that business in creating technology-based infrastructure in cities. There are also environmental initiatives, a high-functioning public transportation system in many cases, urban planning based on data and data points, and making the city as livable for its humans and utilizing its resources. Now we have examples both in several sectors actually, in transportation, in energy conservation, in waste management, smart buildings, and so on. So I'd like to also introduce as part of this, or a segue into our panel, we have actually somebody who's coming from an institution that is very present in this part of the world. Its programs have created and developed infrastructure and have invested in capacity building programs, and that is the European Union, or the delegation of the European Union. And with us today, briefly, we have Stefano Elero, who's the head of the cooperation in the EU delegation to Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he'll I believe he will address us briefly. And I would just like to ask whether we have our member of, or temporary member of the panel ready.
Good morning, I hope you hear me.
Good morning, Stefano.
Good morning everybody. I don't know if I'm chipping in the right moment because you're already talking of smart cities, but I was asked to give a brief address to the audience regarding the EU involvement and current support to digitalization in Bosnia and Herzegovina, as I'm working for the delegation in Sarajevo, but more at large for the Western Balkans. So I will provide this quickly, although you already moved to the smart city discussion. But just I wanted to say that clearly digitalization and digital era is one of the key priorities that the President von der Leyen has set at the beginning of her mandate with the current Commission. And so it is an utmost priority for us to promote and push the digital transformation of economy and society also in our neighborhood, within the European Union and in our neighborhood. For this reason, the European Union has developed the EU digital agenda, to which all the Western Balkans have already committed in 2017, as I understand. And it looks at promoting digital innovation and online access to goods and services using e-business and e-commerce, and more broad to promote a cultural change in the way we are dealing with the social issues and services in the public domain and the economy in the private domain. Information and communication technologies are enabler now in this perspective of economic growth and development. And in particular, the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, especially in these challenges time that are brought by the impact of the pandemic and other transformation of the market, should harness the power of technology, data analysis, and embrace innovations. These changes improve productivity, increase efficiency, lower the costs, and also there are key enablers for the green transition. That is the second great priority that the Commission has set at its onset and is steadily promoting inside and outside the Union. Currently, we are already providing support to the small and medium enterprises in Bosnia and Herzegovina to transition to digitalization. That we have two partners working on it, EBRD and GIZ. 160 small and medium enterprises are the target to have a blended support from our grants and 40 million from the EBRD credit line, access to know-how, while GIZ will focus on improving a policy framework for the small and medium digital ecosystem, while 120 small and medium enterprises are supposed to participate in high technical industrial innovations through 5 digital hubs that we are establishing thanks to our partner throughout Bosnia and Herzegovina. We are also supporting digital introduction of electronic signature and issuance of qualified digital certificates in cooperation with the Agency for Indirect Taxation and the Agency for Digital Services, IDEA, in Bosnia and Herzegovina. On the public domain as well, we are engaging on the e-governance side, implementing a project that supports the development and installation of software for e-legislation in the parliaments of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It aims at a more efficient and transparent and service-oriented public administration capable to lead Bosnia and Herzegovina through the EU integration processes. The purpose of this contract is to support the legislative alignment and oversight role of the Parliament. So the next step is the implementation of the economic and investment plan for the Western Balkans that is broader than digitalization but encompasses digitalization, as it sets out a substantial investment package that is supposed to mobilize up to 9 billion euros of funding for the region. It is intended to support competitiveness and inclusive growth and the twin green and digital transition. We see this as different blocks of the same development strategy and development modality. We expect that Bosnia and Herzegovina will respond to this offer and to this support with quality projects and development of the necessary capacities to utilize these funds and stand side by side with other regional economies in digitalization. The EU, I want to conclude, stands continuously ready to support BIH at institutional and social level and its business community towards a modern and thriving economy and society. So that was my contribution to your works.
Thank you, Stefano. I have a question while you're still online, if you can just briefly stay with us for...
Yes.
You've mentioned overall the Western Balkans. When we talk about smart cities and initiatives in general, we look at them individually. We look at them as separate entities. So does the European Commission, through its programs for the Western Balkans, promote cooperation, the share of technologies, transfer of knowledge, so that solutions that have been effective in certain areas or certain cities in terms of digitalization are being transferred and exported, if you wish, to other parts of the Western Balkans? So in terms of cooperation, how does that work? Are there programs to promote that, and what can be done to do more in that respect?
Well, of course, knowledge transfer is one of the key instruments that we are using in our external cooperation, and we have also specific instruments to do so, like TAIEX or twinning, in which we put together experiences of our member states with our partner countries, and they've been widely used for institutional reform and other scopes in the Western Balkans and Eastern Europe already extensively. And of course, this can be used also for these new areas of exchange, like, as you mentioned, smart cities, and that has to happen upon the request of local governments or cities in Bosnia and Herzegovina. But what it is the public domain, so the e-governance or other services that can be promoted by the public domain. If there is contribution from the private sector in this development of these services, and it is definitely needed in order to have significant investments, that is going to be promoted soon also through another instrument that the first time will be used also in the Western Balkans, which is the guarantees. So the Commission is setting aside a pot of money, a pool of money to support private investment. And clearly, digitalization is one of the priorities, as I said at the very beginning. And there will be the necessary intermediation of investment banks. I know the EBRD, for example, is working also outside the neighborhood worldwide on smart cities and promoting this concept of new services and new modern life in the urban area. So this will be the role of the bank to develop portfolios of investment for the private sector to come in and support the process of transformation. And this will be active, they'll be in place since the beginning of 2022. We already started to discuss with these partners. And so let's see what we'll be able to promote and what will be the level of investment. But as I said, the idea is that the European the economic and investment framework the EIP, what we call EIP, is supposed to mobilize $9 billion euros for the Western Balkans. And this is public and private. So in this framework, digitalization is one of the key pillars. There are two, basically, is the green transition and the digital transition that are intertwined, in my view, because you cannot achieve an effective green transformation without using the digital technologies. It's impossible. I mean, you need to.
And how do you, so you have an opportunity, or we have an opportunity here now, both to the audience live and those following us online. You mentioned that there's also opportunities both for the public sector, with which you work most directly, but also for the private sector. And we know that the private sector is the sector that drives growth and innovation. So just briefly, could you tell us, to our audiences, where is it that they can turn to suggest, to come up with proposals, to work on projects or come up with initiatives that can be considered by institutions such as yours or partner institutions for implementation and financing?
Well, in terms of implementation, we are not an implementing agency. We are financing partners that are implementing support to the public institutions and to the private sector. So for what the support to the small and medium enterprises is directly managed from us and through these partners that I mentioned, the EBRD and GIZ, and there will be public announcements of support lines to which the small and medium enterprise can apply, and then there will be, of course, an assessment criteria of the quality of the business proposal, and then there will be a selection of the final beneficiaries. And on the public domain, instead, there should be an initial discussion with us to understand what are the kind of support that is required and needed, and then we can set in place a number of instruments of, especially as you mentioned, of knowledge transfer between the experience that we are having inside the European Union and partners cities, for example, in the Western Balkans. And this is in the making, and I think that we will promote also some brainstorming, some discussions with the different groups of potential beneficiaries, is also to collect feedbacks on the strategy and what is more needed in the specific context of Bosnia and Herzegovina. And so it is an ongoing process. And as I said, for example, this new instrument of investment, the guarantees for lending is going to be in function next year. It's not yet approved because we enter in the new cycle of cooperation 21-27, and it's in the making. But clearly there will be space for discussion and support with no discussion, because digitalization and smart city within the overall process of digital transformation are a clear priority of the Commission.
Excellent. Great news, and I think great information for our members here, for our guests and people following. Thank you very much for your input. Grateful for that. We'll keep in touch, and actually this is a great segue for our next speaker, who comes from the public sector. She's from the Ministry of Economic Development in Montenegro, and perhaps we get a chance to learn whether Montenegro has been a beneficiary of some of these programs that Stefano has just outlined. So I would like to thank you, Stefano. See you hopefully soon and live. And so our next panelist that I'd like to address our next question to is Ms. Marijeta from the Ministry of Economic Development in Montenegro. And let's just see if she's with us.
I'm here.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Can you see us?
Yes.
Okay,
Do you hear
great.
me?
We can see you now as well. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you.
You've heard Stefano from the EU. I'd like to ask you, what are some of the challenges that authorities in general, both from the local level but also national level, face in leading to the transition of cities of the future and digitalization, and to make cities more livable, healthier, cleaner, safer, and more resilient? Could you tell us a bit about some of the examples that you've implemented and what the ministry does and what your role is exactly?
Thank you, dear Faris, for your introductory note. I sincerely appreciate your kind invitation, and I'm very happy to exchange our views of Montenegro, but also views with our respective panelists. So the smart city is certainly a global trend, inevitable, and the pandemic showed that we are already on this path, and that it has a huge importance in the development of our cities. When we are talking about our cities in the region, in the matter of fact, there are a lot of ongoing initiatives of the smart city. Maybe not in systematic way, something are individual, but we have a lot of them, something like smart governance or e-local government initiatives, smart mobility initiatives in terms of parking sensors, electronic vehicles, and so on. But also during the pandemic, very important initiatives in e-education, e-health, and so on. What is very important to emphasize, and I think very important when we are talking about the smart city concept, is that in the center of this are citizens. So we are doing all this and using technologically advanced innovative solutions in order to improve the standard and well-being of our citizens. The rule of innovation is very important. What we have done, we proceeded with prioritization, and in 2019 we adopted the smart specialization strategy. So this is the perfect tool according to the EU methodology, a recipe where you can use research, innovative and economic potential in order to leverage the economic growth of the country. So the smart city concept is recognized within the smart specialization of Montenegro, and certainly within the priority of ICT, within the representative program digital transformation, but also within the priority regarding energy and sustainable development. As you mentioned in the introductory note, this part of the energy efficiency and this smart pillar is very important for the smart city development. Then we must have access to finance, and this is important, and this is the huge challenge certainly for the local governments. So since our all investment in innovation is now based on our smart specialization priorities, we created a program which is called Program for Innovation for 21-24, and our idea for this program was to show to the community, innovation community, all relevant program lines that the government is offering to the we know that innovation community, the most active are startups and micro, small and medium enterprises in this sense, and that we wanted to cover all the cycle of the innovation development. What does it mean? The huge challenge was that some of the innovation instruments were for some of the phases of the development of innovation. But if we want to develop some technologically advanced innovative solutions, we must start from the very beginning, when the idea and innovative idea is created, then to test this idea, and then in collaboration maybe to develop it until its presentation to the market. So with this program we tried to cover all the cycle of the innovation development. How it is important for the smart city concept? You know that a lot of initiatives are related firstly for the startup ideas. So we wanted also to generate some and to stimulate some smart ideas from the startup sector, who is very active. So we are starting with the pre-acceleration program, then continuing as a follow-up with the early stage of development of the startups. And when we know that these solutions are feasible, then we are proceeding with some other instruments such as larger grants for innovative projects, collaborative projects, because the participation of the academia is very important, and then preparing these ideas in advanced stages and these technological solutions for the market. For us,
are these? I have just a brief question on top of that. Are these initiatives all initiated by the public sector?
No, and that is very important. The huge challenge when we are talking about the region is to provide and to have some platform of the partnership between all sectors, which means public, private, civil sector, and academia. So smart specialization leveraged this process very well in Montenegro. We had a lot of consultations during the preparation of the strategy, and for example, half of the participants and stakeholders in this process were from the private sector, which was very important for us. We had adequate feedback, so we opened the stage for our further consultations. In the matter of fact, now we have also the draft of the operational program for this strategy, so we have continued these consultations. And this is one of the big challenges, and the cities and the governments should work on this, because it is hard, but the result will be better when we collect all relevant stakeholders. So another challenge that we are talking about challenges is, as I said, access to finance, and then, as you mentioned, smart city concept and definition is not the one. Each city has its own characteristics, specificities, so it is important to prioritize and to have key pillars of the smart city development. Each city should identify these pillars and develop them.
Thank you very much. That actually is a great segue into the private sector, and we have representatives of the private sector, some of the companies which have been at the forefront of technological advancement in the world. With us today is also the director of Huawei for Bosnia and Herzegovina. And you probably all know Huawei from, you've probably used at least once, at least one of their phones, if not tablets or other technological pieces of equipment. But Huawei is much more than that. The advances that, and Huawei comes from China, and we've been witnesses that China has had tremendous economic and technological advancement in the past few decades. And I think that we in this part of the world are maybe not even fully familiar with all the technological advances coming out. And so I'd like to ask you, why do we need smart cities? And what are smart cities from your perspective? And how does Huawei lead in terms of technological advancement?
Okay, thank you, Faris. And yes, well, as you know, that Huawei Technologies is a ICT global leader in the ICT industry, and also we are heavily involved in smart city projects all over the world. And the digital economy is becoming a new kinetic energy of the economy development, driving the rapid development of the society. From my opinion, the digital economy generates value for the nation and its cities in 5 ways, let's say. First is restructuring the traditional business models. Second is increasing the labor productively. And the third one is promoting the industry maturity. And the fourth is promoting the mass innovation. And the last one is increasing the employment. In the wave of the digital economy development, of course, the government has the following dual roles, this is from my opinion. And the first one is to use technologies to improve the management. This is the first. And second, that to help the ecosystem do the digital transformation and improve their business. This is from, and we believe that digitalization in general is extremely important for the deployment of the society. And smart cities is one of the parts of the digitalization process. What we should ask, now go back to your question that why we need a smart city. What we should ask is not do we need smart cities, but instead that what will smart cities bring to us, both to the country as institutions and the citizens of the country. And for the country, smart cities bring more efficiency and productive management. We all know that time is money. So by doing smart city projects, we can say that there's a lot of time can be saved. And at the same time, smart cities can help use the energy in a smart way. Okay, for example, smart lighting on the streets could save a lot of energies. So for the normal citizen, smart city means more convenience for their daily life. Just now, the ministry is also talking about that the systems to help the tourism. So that is a kind of example. That's the kind of example. That means that going smart will also means going faster and efficient. Also, we can see that digitalization is a good tool for the economical development, and we have many reference. I mean, Huawei have many reference that where countries through the digitalization start their rapid economy improvement, and also we can see that the beneficial for the digitalization during the COVID-19 period that a lot of countries it's locked down and. According to the digitalization development, that people still can working remotely. That is the okay. So in short, that smart city enhance city management and promotes the technological innovations in a way to optimize city functions and promotes the economy growth, while at the same time promoting the better quality of life for the citizens.
Can you, you come from China, right?
Of course.
You've lived and worked in China and perhaps also somewhere else. Now you're in Bosnia, in the Balkans. Could you give us, could you give us a brief maybe overview from your point of view, what you've seen in terms of technological advancement and both in terms of the readiness of cities to become smart? Perhaps a brief comparison between maybe some of the most advanced cities in China or elsewhere, and how do we compare in the Balkans, and in particular Sarajevo? From your perspective, what are some of the challenges?
Okay, I think it's very difficult to compare the development of the smart cities between the different countries or regions, because that we are, of course, we have to the first analyze the current situations, and then to make the plan for the future development. Not all countries are in the economical and the technical level of the development, and therefore that their needs are very different. But nevertheless, we can use the country or cities where smart cities is successful as a reference, and then modify it to Bosnia and Herzegovina. For example, observing already developed societies, and we can at least realize what do we want or needs for the smart city. So each country faces different challenges, but from my opinion, first we think that the foundation for a successful smart city is a good ICT infrastructure. In that way, we can rely on the infrastructure and exploit the possibilities for the further development. So let's say what I would like to mention is that having a clear and a realistic goal is extremely important, and that all the stakeholders, public, private companies, all the organizations, the stakeholders involved in the smart city, we should be on the same page to align each other and then to have the further development. Yeah.
So how do you see, for example, what you've witnessed here? How far behind are we in comparison to some of the most advanced places that you've been to?
Okay, to talking about the smart cities in Sarajevo.
For example, yeah, like, because we're not very well advanced, we can't say that this region is spearheading change. It's there, it's moving, it's going in the right direction, and that's why we're here discussing it. And we see programs both that, you know, supporting development. We have the Ministry of Economic Development in Montenegro just outlining all the public-private partnerships and programs that they're encouraging. But we're still at early stages. Do you think that we need to speed up? Are we on the right track?
Yes, I see a lot of smart people here in Sarajevo, but we still, of course, we still have lots of space to improvement of the cities itself. And Sarajevo, there's many other cities in the country have a great potential to become a smart city. For example, Sarajevo is the famous city for the tourism. And when the tourism come to the Sarajevo, the city could provide them a kind of unified platform for the tourism's content, which will bring the economy benefits to the cities. So in the ecosystem, everybody has the benefits on that. Of course, that's what I want to point out once again is that smart city is also a joint effort from all the ecosystems players. And I'm very glad to see that smart city now is one of the topics for the events such as Sarajevo Unlimited, and where we have the both government and real sectors actively participating. Huawei is ready to support and share our knowledges and experience and of course our resource to help to build a smart Sarajevo. And we think that improving the ICT infrastructure is a good start to building this smart city. So we believe that this is this panel discussions shows that Sarajevo will become more and more a smart city in the future, and we hope this is happen as soon as possible.
Thank you. I'd like to address Lara. I think Lara is here with us. Lara comes from Cisco, and I believe most of you have heard of the company Cisco. It has become synonymous with connectivity, with networking. And do we have Lara with us? Can she hear us?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Okay, great. So I'd like to ask you, from your perspective, and I know that you've been involved, or Cisco has been involved worldwide in a number of initiatives and in improving infrastructure, in particular connectivity, and smart cities is all about connectivity. So how can we utilize technology to encourage and enable the development of cities? From your point of view and perhaps from your experiences that you've done, and how have you, from your experience in working with particular public sector institutions in developing these solutions, how does the reallocation of capital and resources into innovative solutions, how does that take place?
Thank you, Faris. Well, first and foremost, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you, the organization, for the invitation. It's again a pleasure for Cisco to be present in such an important event, and unfortunately not yet in person, but we didn't want to miss the opportunity to discuss such a topic, even more now because of the pandemic that really put leaders and cities and authorities under huge pressure to deal with new challenges that we didn't think that existed before. So you are absolutely right. I mean, we have been working in this field for many, many years, and we have heard the numbers that you mentioned at the beginning. We have heard, numbers like that by 2050, more than 9 billion people will be living in cities, which is like 2/3 of all people that we have in the planet living in cities. So it's a huge challenge that we have ahead. And of course, now with the pandemic, leaders were put under pressure to actually deal with these challenges and how actually the digital transformation can help people to have and residents to have a better life. So that's what we've been working with many governments. And by the way, this is something that governments and city authorities have been discussing for many years. But actually now, due to the effects of the pandemic, the digital transformation journey became something that used to be kind of a nice to have to really a need to have. The pandemic really fast forward the digital transformation for about 10 years. So the work that we've been doing for many years now, and we keep doing, and we want to help the authorities going through this pandemic and the effects of the pandemic as soon as possible. It's based on 3 moral obligations that we have set as a company to help cities, and as Marijeta mentioned, also to help cities, because at the end of the day, it's the residents, it's the citizens of these cities that will benefit from it. So in Cisco, we have 3 moral obligations. And to your point, we need to connect everyone. That's number 1. That's what we do best. How we can connect everyone. And how, number 2, can we be good agents of technology innovation? And last but not least, how can we protect the planet? Because sustainability is being more talked than ever nowadays, and city have a crucial role also to play here. So let me just highlight a little bit each of those. So our first obligation as a company, and that's what we've been doing for the last years with many cities around the world, is to connect everyone. As a result of the pandemic, actually, public services have increased in online availability, and we move now to connect 500 billion things by 2030. 500 billion things. It's a huge number. So networking and collaboration actually are the enablers for areas such as education, healthcare, the ability to have and to receive government services. However, although networking and collaboration and connectivity can be great, there is also a risk to that, because many people can be left behind. The people that are not connected. Because nowadays, unfortunately, near half of the world is still unconnected. So we need to do something about this part. Leaders must connect everyone. I mean, we definitely need to narrow the digital divide that still exists. And that's where technology can be a powerful ally to address this most pressing challenge in cities. To access, for instance, sustainable mobility, to address climate change emergency, to improve the quality of life at the end of the day. So in Cisco, we've been working with many public entities to digital transform education, healthcare, governments in 180 countries. To give you an idea, we've been working with 17,000 healthcare organizations, and we have an ecosystem partner of 60,000 partners with whom we work with, that varies from various range in the society, both from the private and the public entities. So I think we have an unique opportunity to work all together to really connect everyone. So bear in mind, 3 billion people remain unconnected nowadays. So it's our moral obligation to help them to connect. And I mean, our technology is the foundation. Just have in mind that 60% of the world internet traffic passes through a Cisco equipment. So just to highlight where we can help the countries and the cities on having this connectivity can help you, for instance, now on providing hybrid work. As you know, going back to the offices or the schools or universities, it's not going to be exactly the same as it used to be before the pandemic. So it's our obligation to help the remote working and students to continue to learn remotely. Also help the rural areas, because we are always talking about cities, but
Can
rural
I ask you a sub-question? You just mentioned education, which is extremely important in going forward. I understand that Cisco has invested and is investing into talent creation and talent retention as well. But education itself, could you tell us a bit, just briefly, about what are the Cisco academies, how do they work, how does that create talent, And also perhaps if you can give us a few examples, if you have concrete examples, so that our audience can witness some of the examples of connectivity and integration of your technologies in creating cities of the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we have established a networking academy since 1997. It's a networking academy. It's partnering with various stakeholders across the world. So, as Marijeta also mentioned, and the European Commission mentioned before as well, the importance of working together, public with private sector. So, we've been teaming up with various institutions to help students across the world to be upskilled and reskilled on networking, cybersecurity, basically to help to create the jobs for the future. So the digital skills are a crucial investment, and we think that's a way, and especially even more now, to help recovering from the pandemic. So to give you a number, we have trained 12 billion people, 12 million students across the world. And just in the last year, we have trained 2.5 million students across the world. And to just, as a concrete example, we've been, for instance, also training the staff, the municipality employees of Turin. So it's also important. It's not only about students, but also people that work in municipalities that are willing to upskill their digital skills. And here in Bosnia, or there in Bosnia, let's say, we have good examples where we've been working with Cisco Network Academy. We've been working with the Faculty of Electrical Engineer at University of Banja Luka, and pardon me if I'm not pronouncing correctly. Exactly. The University of Sarajevo, the International Birch University. So we have many examples in the country where we are teaming up to indeed help to improve the digital skills, which we believe that will create the jobs of the future, the present and the future. And just to mention concrete examples, as you asked. Actually, in one of the events that we usually address as well as important events around smart cities is the Smart City World Congress that takes place in Barcelona, and this, it just took place 2 weeks ago. And we were present there, and actually Cisco, together with the city of Albuquerque in US, we won a prize because actually the city got this project implemented for modernize their water infrastructure. So water is crucial in an area that it's very desert in US, and that they wanted to modernize their infrastructure. And this is just one public service. The water infrastructure where digital connectivity and streamless approach needs to happen. And we want to make sure that whatever service we provide in terms of water deployment in the city is well protected and it's secure. I just wanted to highlight one comment related to that, that brings me to the second moral obligation that I was mentioning. So the first one is to connect everyone, the second one is to be good agents of innovation, and the third one is to protect the planet. On the second one, let me highlight one thing that is actually crucial in this example as well, which is trust. So we believe that to secure any service, public services, any digital platform, any foundation of a smart city, we need trust. We used to say that data was the new languages, but in fact we believe that trust is the new language. Before any ICT infrastructure, any smart city needs to be founded into a trusted architecture. So I just wanted to highlight this as a critical point of a foundation to a smart city.
Thank you very much for that. Now we've seen also completely new cities being developed out of nothing to be smart cities, like Neom in Saudi Arabia. But we're still not there in Sarajevo. And our last but not least, one of our favorite friends of the forum, is a person who has been in the public sphere, sort of, has worked on smart city initiatives, and is now in one of the leading Bosnian IT companies, fast developing. So he has a unique perspective. He's been on both sides of the boat, so to speak. And I'd like to ask Tarik, where is Sarajevo today in terms of being a smart city?
Thank you for the introduction. A pleasure to be here. I'm coming from the company called Ministry of Programming, Sarajevo-based company that was 2017 the most innovative company at this forum. It grew a lot, and in the meantime, you know, we were the first company from Bosnia and Herzegovina to get to the Financial Times of the fastest growing companies in Europe. In the last 6 years, Sarajevo Limited was one of the ambassadors of the smart city story and the concept in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and I have closely followed the story behind. The term smart city and the concept of smart city is not that old. It started, let's say, to become mainstream when tech companies like Cisco, like Huawei, like IBM, like Siemens, the company that I used to work and learn everything about smart cities that you can think of, use that catchy phrase to have the sales pitch towards the cities and city officials in order for them to manage their cities better and make decision-driven, make informed decisions that are based on data. That was the first evolution of the city, you know. So I will connect everything with Sarajevo in the end, of course. The second evolution is cities are becoming smarter from 2008. You have the European directives that are beginning, that are, let's say, giving the path towards developing cities in Europe. And first, smart city strategies are being developed by cities in Europe. So cities are evolving and they become partner with tech companies so they can get a tailor-made, let's say, solutions for their cities. The third phase and the most interesting phase, and this is the way how I like that smart cities is being evolved and through the years, and that is happening mostly, let's say, in the last 5 years, is the inclusiveness of the cities and getting everyone on board, starting with the citizens. So this was neglected in the first two phases. Starting with the academia, with NGO sector, everyone to get on board for this main idea behind a smart city, and that is to increase the quality of life. Not use the technology just, but to increase the quality of life using a tool that is technology. So what is happening in Sarajevo? Sarajevo is currently in a hybrid phase, having all of these three stages coming at once. We have a fierce competition, so global leaders like Huawei, like Cisco are here, but also other companies, you know, coming to Sarajevo and the regional cities, offering their state-of-the-art solutions. They are working together with the cities. The second phase, I'm also glad to see that the first strategic documents are being built in Bosnia and Herzegovina, something that I was also advocating a lot, that is getting that vision of a city also public. So what does it mean if you speak about smart cities and all of these tiny solutions if you do not know where you are going? Let's say, what is Sarajevo 2030? What is Sarajevo 2050? In my opinion, we are still missing this. And the third thing that happened here in Sarajevo, I'm proudly to say, one of the most positive examples of citizens' inclusiveness that started to happen 3 years ago. It stopped a little bit by the pandemics, and it was also triggered to this event. So UNDP and City of Sarajevo started a Smart City Initiative, which included, let's say, local champions in those terms, and gathered more than 140 people into one organization called City Mind Lab. It was an informal group of people starting to ideate and brainstorm on how this approach could be developed in Sarajevo. Public questionnaire and call was shared to the wider audience, and more than 1,300 people responded what are the biggest and main challenges in Sarajevo to get to the next level of the quality of life. And the first thing was air quality, second one was public transport, third one was bribery and corruption. So everything the gentleman that opened the conference here talked about, not about this last thing, but definitely about the air quality and the public transport. So as you can see, all of these three topics are now in the focus of activities in Sarajevo. Just one thing connected with air quality, why things like smart sensors, smart technology is really important. 5 years ago, US Embassy opened data, opened their information related to the air quality of all capital cities in the world. And we could see that Sarajevo was one of the most air polluted cities in some winter months. This created such awareness that it immediately became one of the biggest challenges in the city itself. So you have all of the programs now and budgets that are being developed in order to tackle this problem. You know, it goes to public transport, but it goes also to heating systems in the housing that are also causing a lot of issues. So
do we have? That's a really good example, actually, of tech working in favor of what we call a concept of smart city. Yeah. Do you have any other examples from your previous or current engagement?
Yeah, so my previous engagement was connected with the public city enterprise, you know. So again, Sarajevo is in some cases most air polluted city in Europe, but also at the same time, it is the greenest capital in Europe, you know. I don't know how many of you knew about it. If you would put a point in the city center and draw a circle of 8 kilometers in diameter compared to other capital cities in Europe, Sarajevo is the greenest capital in terms of index of vegetation. That does take into account Trebević Mountain, all of the beautiful surroundings of Sarajevo. You have the city, you have the mountain connected with state-of-the-art technology, the cable car, Sarajevo cable car, connected the citizens and brought back the biggest park in the city to its citizens, where you go in less than 8 minutes to the city itself, in a very energy efficient way with direct drive systems of cable cars and stuff like that. Yeah.
I'm being actually bombarded by the organizers that we're out of time, and we do not want to stand between you and coffee, of course. So I would like to take this opportunity, and unfortunately I wish we had more time because this is a super interesting topic, and I know that there is much more to be said on this topic. But as we're out of time, I'd like to thank our panelists very much for their very valuable contributions, and I'll ask if there are any questions. We'll have to communicate them to you afterwards because we're unfortunately out of time. So I'd like to thank our panelists very much for your very valuable contributions, inputs, and we hope to see you and see some of that tech being developed in Sarajevo and cities across the region. And hopefully we'll be at panels such as this one across the world, showcasing those examples from this region very soon. So thank you all very much, and we continue with our coffee break, and then there's a very interesting presentation following this one. Thank you again very much for taking part.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to work with you. Have a nice day.
Hvala Farisu i hvala našim prvim panelistima za danas. Kao što ste čuli, sada slijedi kafe pauza u Tropik baru. S obzirom da smo probili vrijeme za održavanje prvog panela, molit ću vas da se držimo predviđenih minutaža kako bismo na vrijeme stigli sa svim sjajnim sadržajima koje smo vam pripremili za prvi dan Unlimiteda. Dakle, sad 15 minuta pauza u Tropik baru i... Dobro, dame i gospodo, poštovani učesnici, svi vi koji ste sa nama evo, od ranih jutarnjih sati, a i neki koji su nam se tek sada pridružili, još jednom dobar dan, dobro nam došli. Imali smo malo kašnjenje, ali to je normalno kada su ovakve stvari u pitanju. Nadam se da ste se osvježili uz kratku kafe pauzu. Nakon prvog panela koji je vodio kolega Faris Hadrović, koji će nam se kasnije opet pridružiti, idemo dalje. Kao što znate, a možda i ne znate, ovogodišnji Unlimited je u hibridnom izdanju, dakle kombinujemo i uživo ovdje fizički prisutne govornike govornike i naše cijenjene paneliste, ali naravno i prezentacije također značajnih sagovornika iz cijelog svijeta i tako će biti u naredna 2 dana. Dakle, u nastavku vam predstavljam gospodu Marka Hojmera i Feliksa Kulmana ispred Giza, koji će nam se virtuelno predstaviti. Nadam se da ih vidimo i da nas čuju. Mr. Hojmer and Kulman, hello. Welcome to Sarajevo Unlimited. Thank you for being with us. And
Hello.
the online floor is yours, actually, for next 20 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good morning. Just let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see the screen? Okay, perfect. Yes. Good morning from my side as well. And first of all, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity today to discuss with you on digital innovation hubs and from our perspective how this instrument is used in GIZ context. But actually, who is talking to you here? So my name is Felix Kuhlmann. I'm here with my colleague Mark Hümer. Mark is working in a GIZ project called the African European Digital Innovation Bridge, and he will tell us also in a bit about this project, which is one of the flagships using digital innovation hubs as an instrument. And myself, I'm a technical advisor. I'm based here in Frankfurt, GIZ headquarters, and so to say, being kind of the connector between the different projects in GIZ context using digital innovation hubs as an instrument for local economic development. So in the next 15 to 20 minutes, we will be presenting you a little bit like where does the concept come from, how did it enter the GIZ world, and then 2 concrete examples. One is the ADIP from the African context, and then even closer to you, a project in Bosnia-Herzegovina using digital innovation hubs as an instrument very soon. So, where and how did digital innovation hubs come from concept paper to life, and how are they today supporting the digitalization of small and medium-sized enterprises, but also the public sector, and in this sense fostering regional economic development? And surprise, they didn't fall from the sky, so to say, because already in the early 2010s by the European Commission, there was the awareness that there is a lack of digitalization, specifically among SMEs. And on the other hand, also a low level of cooperation between the actors from the digital economy. So the Commission started to support so-called competence centers. These are mainly the famous Fraunhofers in Germany, or TNO in the Netherlands, VTT in Finland. And based on this experience, specifically from the manufacturing sector, they then started, roughly speaking, as of 2016, to support consortia developing business plan to become digital innovation hubs. Then they also created this catalog where we currently have, roughly speaking, 350, 400 digital innovation hubs, mainly in the European Union, but also in other parts of the world, as we also see and discuss later. Digital innovation hubs per se are sector agnostic. So they are building on the local infrastructure and entities, and they can be adapted and work in any sector like agriculture, energy, logistics, but also on technology focused digital innovation hubs like IoT and big data are a trending topic. And the plan of the Commission is to have, at the end of the day, a very dense pan-European network of digital innovation hub, but each digital innovation hub, so to say, serving its local community. And in the European Union, there's already, so to say, next level digital innovation hubs, the European digital innovation hubs, which will also be heavily co-financed by the member states, and looking into specific areas like high performance computing. So there's one specific paper / handbook I would like to recommend to you. It was developed by the Joint Research Center because I can imagine it is very hard to understand actually the concept of digital innovation hubs in all its aspects, and how do I come from idea to life. So also please have a look if you're interested in the concept and using it. In this paper, it's really from step 0 to step 7, very clearly defined what you need to do from various perspectives as a policymaker, as an innovative SME, as a cluster manager. So this is a really very helpful guidebook, and also contains very good practices. So how did the digital innovation hubs then come to GIZ? Or the GIZ context. As of today, we have roughly speaking 7-8 projects from Mexico, Brazil to Kosovo, Bosnia-Herzegovina, working with the concept of digital innovation hubs. The most advanced currently is the African-European Digital Innovation Bridge Network, where Mark will say something. This is also heavily supported by the European Commission, but we also see them in Mexico, in Kenya, in Algeria, on a variety of topics. So as I said, they can be from per se are really sector agnostic. So it doesn't really matter if you want to tackle digitalization, innovation, and climate in circular economy, or in smart energy, or in manufacturing. It can be adapted to all contexts because it builds on the strengths of the local innovation community. So this is, so to say, the entrance to the more concrete examples of the ADIP-NET project first, and then followed by some insights on what we are planning as GIZ in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Mark, please.
Okay, thank you so much, and also a warm welcome from my side. I'm very happy to be here and to be saying a few words about the African-European Digital Innovation Bridge. Now, this has been an initiative that has been put forward by the European Commission of various European member states to bundle the efforts to strengthen and support startups and tech entrepreneurship in Africa. Now, obviously, there's various instruments on how you can strengthen startup ecosystems, develop local innovation ecosystems. But within ADIP-NET, we have the opportunity to try out this concept and adopt the concept of digital innovation hubs in the African context. So what we have done is we have had a look at, a thorough look at how the European concept looks like for digital innovation hubs, and looked at the specifics in the African context and see how we had to adjust it, how we had to amend it. So we have spoken with quite a few stakeholders there to come up with an approach that fits the African context. Now, there is actually one definition, and then maybe, Felix, if you move on. And I'm just going to read that aloud because that's just in a nutshell summarizing it pretty well. So a digital innovation hub is a coordinated group of organizations with complementary expertise and a public benefit objective, offering a set of services and activities to companies to support their digital transformation and innovation through a one-stop shop. That's a long sentence, contains lots of details and information. So let me just highlight, for the brevity of time, a few things here. So first of all, what are the target groups for digital innovation hubs? Now, usually when we speak about digital hubs, especially in the African context, we mean usually what we call tech hubs. So organizations that focus on startups, that are running incubators, accelerator programs, that offer co-working spaces and the like. Now, digital innovation hubs, in this sense, they are targeting small and medium-sized enterprises. Startups and entrepreneurs do play a very important role in that, but they're not the main target group. So in the African context, if we look at agriculture, for example, the target group for a digital innovation hub is your cooperative, is your input provider, your logistics companies, your processor, your off-taker. So persons, organizations that run already a business model, but they are not yet using digital technologies to profit and unleash their potential. And digital innovation hubs are there to support those companies in adopting digital technologies. Now, when we look at what are the digital innovation hubs in the context, and that's what we're saying, it's a coordinated group of organizations. So it's two or more organizations teaming up together and forming the core of this digital innovation hub. Now, why do we say it got to be two or more entities? On the one hand, if we see later on what are the expertise areas and the sort of services that should be covered, there is no single organization that can cover all of that. Second, we all know that innovation ecosystems emerge through the collaboration of actors, people working jointly together on projects. I want to foster this already at this level and making sure that organizations here team up together. And the way that you can think about this is that they are kind of the orchestrator of the larger innovation ecosystem. So they need to be firmly grounded in there. So if a service request comes from a company in terms of digital transformation, they need to know the startups, the academic institutions, the training institutions, the official bodies, and need to be able to mobilize them to put together their project to cater for the needs of the company requesting the services. Now, what are the expertise areas that we're looking out for? So there's basically 4 expertise areas. So on the one hand, a digital innovation hub should have a solid technological founding. And that could be anything. It could be artificial intelligence, blockchain, drones, VR, AR, to name the usual culprits. But it could be also mobile broadband technologies or whatever. So there was no restriction in terms of what is the technological focus, but there should be one. Technology can be applied in lots of areas, so you need to have someone who brings in this expertise in applying technology in a specific application area. And third, from a subject matter perspective, you need expertise in terms of the sectoral view, so how to put that into the larger picture and how to involve other stakeholders in that area. And lastly, we all know that digital technologies come with a price tag, be that for hardware, software, licenses, or whatever. So you need to have that financing aspect as well. It doesn't need to mean that a digital innovation hub needs to provide the financing themselves, but they should know what are the available financial instruments for delivering certain services and what are the options. And this very much aligns then with the 4 service areas that a digital innovation hub should provide. And these are, first, I always start with that one, test before invest. So allowing companies to try out and test digital technologies before investing in them. So basically allowing, you can think about this in a way of a method how to, for companies to establish if there is a positive return of investment. And this, again, can take any kind of form. It could be access to physical experimentation facilities, to hardware. But it could also be access to test data. If I'm working in precision agriculture and I need high-resolution weather data, a digital innovation hub could simply provide access to the test data. Or it could even go as far as providing access to test users to validate my value proposition. So again, no restriction of what that test before invest really means, but it should be covered. Now, once a company has established the benefit, then obviously they need to finance it, and this is where the access to finance part comes in. And again, here is no restriction in terms of what that could be. It could be very traditional ways of financing, such as credits and loans. It could be investment, equity investment, impact investment, or other forms. Or it could be informal type of investment, such as a crowdfunding campaign or diaspora funding. So again, no restriction here. It's just we just got to make sure that the digital innovation hubs know what are the available financial instruments in my market and what type of financial instrument is suitable for what type of project. Now, after I've validated the benefits, secured my investment, I need someone to operate the digital technologies, and this is where skills and developments come in. So this is basically equipping the employees and the company itself with the required skills in order to operate the digital technology. For example, if I would use a drone in a cooperative for a spraying service, I need someone to pilot the drone. So I need to offer piloting course or know someone in the ecosystem that is able to do that. And the fourth area, that's ecosystem building, which just naturally happens if you do all the 3 before. But this is, again, can take lots of different shapes and forms, such as doing networking events. We're also seeing that if academic institutions are part of a digital innovation hub, they usually sponsor PhD position or master students or postdocs to work on a specific project, and therefore, let's say, building up the ecosystem, also the talent pool that is so crucial for innovation ecosystems to flourish. And with that, I'm done with a quick tour de force through the concept of digital innovation hub, as we are currently piloting that and validating that in the African context.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mark, with these insights from the African context. And having that in mind, we now move over and closer to Sarajevo, to the context of the Western Balkans. Some of you might be aware that there was a study undertaken by the Regional Cooperation Council in the first half of the year. It was a mapping study on digital innovation hubs in the Western Balkans. And as you can see on the left graph, there are already quite some digital innovation hubs, at least self-proclaimed digital innovation hubs that are in this catalog provided by the Joint Research Center from the European Commission. And then on the right hand, also looking into more detail, what are the entities in the Bosnia and Herzegovina context that are, so to say, in the study, not necessarily in the catalog, but that were interviewed during the course of the study. And also here, the point I would like to highlight is the type of organizations. So we see also here, like in the African context, quite a lot of co-working spaces, tech hubs, startup centers. So this is from our perspective also a little bit the point of to come to the point of a clear and common understanding of what is a digital innovation hub when we say that the target group of digital innovation hubs is actually the digitalization of small and medium-sized enterprises. So this may be one point for the discussion later on. So now moving really into Bosnia-Herzegovina and what is GIZ and the project EU for Digital SMEs actually planning to do. The EU for Digital SMEs, this is basically two parallel projects. The one is implemented by GIZ and the other part is implemented by EBRD that runs a little bit longer, but both are receiving co-financing from the European Union delegation in Bosnia-Herzegovina and are working towards the acceleration of the digital transformation and innovation of small and medium-sized enterprises. GIZ specifically works here also on the policy framework, because this is an important aspect that DIH can really thrive, so that they also receive public sector support, and then also working on the actual strengthening of the capacities of SMEs. And here one prime instrument we are going to use are digital innovation hubs. There's also one definition, so to say, of digital innovation hubs that the project uses for the project context. So here you see already that there are some differentiations from the ADIP approach, for example. So here it's also possible that single organizations can apply as a digital innovation hub. We also have the public benefit objective in it. But for example, we don't say one-stop shop because this has a specific connotation in Bosnia, so it's more a central point of contact. And what we really hope for, and where we would like to also take you on board, is the call for DIH proposals. We will launch it in, roughly speaking, 2 weeks, so on the 15th of December. A call for DIH proposals for interested consortia will open with their applications to be then supported by EU for Digital SMEs to become a full-fledged digital innovation hub. The call will be open, roughly speaking, 2 months, so until mid-February, and there's a public launch event in hybrid format. The offline version will take place in Sarajevo, and the online version then, of course, globally. But if you would like to attend, then please write an email to eu4digitalsme@giz.de, and then you will receive further information. So this as a sneak preview, what we will launch in 2 weeks. And before coming to the questions and commenting sections and your engagement, there are 3 points I would like to highlight at the end of this presentation. Yes, there are different understandings and definitions of digital innovation hubs in the world. So the one in the European Union does differ from the one in Mexico, from Africa, and even in the Western Balkans. But I think the main point is, if you would like to use digital innovation hubs in your countries as an instrument for fostering regional economic development, then you must have a clear understanding what digital innovation hubs are in your context. Second point, this is very GIZ related, but our ministry is currently rolling out so-called digital centers, Digitalzentren in German. This is a funding line of GIZ, and please do not mistake it with digital innovation hubs. This is same, but very different at the end of the day. And last but not least, the sustainability aspect. We as GIZ can only support, so to say, the establishment and first steps of digital innovation hubs. To thrive further and develop into something really, really strong, there it needs all the actors on the ground. So meaning like the cluster managers, the universities, the tech hubs, the innovative SMEs, but also the public policy side. Because this is also one point or one lessons learned from the European Union and why it's now European Digital Innovation Hubs, because also the European Commission said, dear member states, we cannot finance it all. So you also need to tap in with finance and science, technology and innovation policies to support these steps. So that's it for the moment from our side. I hope you enjoyed your coffee and our input and have some questions, comments, and we have hopefully some answers. Thank you very much for your attention.
Dobro, za početak bi to bilo to što se tiče online prezentacije i sada, poštovani posjetioci, imamo neka pitanja, online pitanja dakle stižu, a i vi se naravno možete uključiti. So, Mark and Felix, thank you for your presentation. We have so far 2 questions from one of our online participants, and he or she, I don't know exactly, but asked, what are the greatest challenges digital innovation hubs faced in their realization? So there can be questions for both of you.
Mm-hmm. Shall we answer directly or take the second question as well?
No, you can answer me right now, so we can move on.
I would say first and most difficult step is to find the right partners to run a digital innovation hub, because also from the majority of the DIH in the European Union, I think only a handful are single organizations. So most of them are all operating in consortia. And there to find the right partners, then to define the service portfolio, this is probably the biggest challenge. This is also, for example, why we will provide some info sessions during the call in Bosnia as open, and also what Mark is currently doing in the ADEP. And then I think for the long-term perspective, the most challenging part is to get the policymakers on side and have them understand why it is important to foster digital transformation and make your local SMEs more competitive. So I think these 2 points are the major parts, but Mark, please complement.
Basically, second what you're saying, looking at the specificity of the African context, we have, I think one of the major challenges is to make them self-sustainable from a financial point of view in the future, so that if the donor involvement or engagement is withdrawn, that those structures still keep on delivering services. That is definitely one of the major challenges, why we also have to look out then for policy backing. The second one that we're seeing is then how to actually promote the digital innovation hub, how to make the companies aware about them, and then second, if they are aware about them, how to make them work together with the digital innovation hub. So lowering the entry burdens for them actually, just contacting the digital innovation hubs, asking for the service and delivering that. So I would say this is, from my experience, the 2 biggest challenges.
And do you think are these challenges universal?
I would say, I mean, the question is, if we look again at the African context, the core organizations, they are usually more private sector driven, or they don't receive that much of public funding as maybe, research and technology organizations in Europe. So I think that is a specificity to the African context, since we don't have so many publicly funded institutions that already have, let's say, basic finance. We need to make sure that they get enough revenue in order to pay the salary costs. So I think that is specific. To the second question in terms of promoting the services, I also think this is specific because usually, especially if you look at agriculture, in the African context, it's we're speaking about much smaller companies, about companies that are not yet so easily accessible in terms of, contacting them, making them aware about promoting it and encouraging them. Mm-hmm. So I think these two are specific to the African context.
But in general, a global problem is, so to say, to still convince many management staff of the need of digital transformation in SMEs. So this is one aspect we see not only related to digital innovation hubs, but also in all of our private sector development projects, but of course then here also relating to the effectiveness of digital innovation hubs. And as Mark said, there are some parts that are specific to each part of the world, so to say. So in the European Union, DRH are very well supported by Horizon 2020, Horizon Europe, which, for example, right now in Brazil, it's much more difficult to establish one digital innovation hub as a test case for the smart energy / green hydrogen digitalization of the SMEs there, because there is not that much of a public funding and also many new actors. So we also need to define who are actually the SMEs working in this hydrogen value chain. So this is also not as established, for example, as the agricultural value chain, where it's very clear what is your target group.
Okay, and the next question I just got is, what do you think, could this concept succeed in Bosnia as part of individual organization or a network of institutions? What has a better chance in Bosnia and Herzegovina?
From my perspective, or from my thinking, I'm more in favor of group of organizations, because also in our discussions, digital innovation hubs are an instrument not only to foster the local economic development, but specifically the ecosystem and bringing together all the actors. Yes, in any country there are outstanding actors, and this also holds true for Bosnia-Herzegovina. But I think, what is the saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go long, go together. And this also holds true here. Cooperation is the key to success, because also what Mark pointed out, hardly any institution in the world is excellent in all 4 areas of a digital innovation hub, for example. So one have more in skills, one more in access to finance, and then bringing these strengths together and complementing also the weaknesses. I think this is why I see better chances for a group of organizations also here in the Bosnian context.
Okay, thank you guys so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Hope to see you soon here in Sarajevo.
Likewise, next week in Banja Luka on the panel on Friday. So already, if you can't get enough of digital innovation hubs.
Okay, thank you so much.